At the World Health Assembly last June, the World Health Organization was unable to pass their worldwide pandemic agreement, really a treaty, as planned, in large part because of the opposition that began to percolate up because of programs like this that were focusing on it, and we had members of Congress that were willing to step out and draw attention to it. But just like the left on so many things, they don't go away. Just kind of like COVID, it's still there. The global organization did adopt amendments to the international health regulations, which are riddled with elements that challenge American freedoms and sovereignty. Well, earlier today, leaders on Capitol Hill held a press conference to call attention to the problems inherent in this treaty and to recommend action items in response. Joining me now to discuss this, Congressman Eli Crane. He serves on the House Homeland Security Committee, the House Committee on Veteran Affairs, and the House Small Business Committee. He represents the 2nd Congressional District of Arizona. Congressman Crane, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Tony. I appreciate it.
So let's talk about some of the issues that were brought up today about the WHO, what they're trying to accomplish through this agreement that they're pushing forward, and why we have to stop it.
Yeah, Tony, I think you alluded to it in your opening comments. The deal with these guys, it's always the same. It's always the same deal. They want authority, they want global governance, and they'll do whatever they can to achieve that. This agreement that we're trying to stop, would give them authority, global authority in multiple categories of catastrophic events that might happen around the world, from another pandemic to crises, immigration, food shortages around the world, cybersecurity attacks, attacks in space, black swan events. I mean, there's so many different environmental crises, and we know how the left and globalists love to use, the environment as a tool to strip away rights and take more control over American people's lives. And so that's what this is about. Once again, it's going to continue to be the same fight. They might try and change the definition or the agreement, but that's what it's always going to be about. And I'm glad to be on your side of the football on this one and trying to preserve our sovereignty, because I think that, unfortunately, a lot of these folks that are globalists, like the World Health Organization and others, quite frankly, really don't care what's best for the American people. One of the most scary things about it, Tony, is we can't vote them out of office if they're doing a poor job. And so we must do everything we can to continue to block this.
Well, the point you made just a few moments ago and at the press conference earlier today, when you went through the litany of examples that they use that could trigger their authority, I mean, if you think about it, that's any day of the week, when you look at the headlines of a newspaper, it would have triggered the WHO being able to use their power and their authority on a global basis if you look at how wide open they leave those definitions.
Bingo, Tony, and that's exactly what they want. And sadly, this Biden administration has, they're in complete support of this. It's one more reason why this next election is so important. But, my message to your viewers out there, regardless of whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, how wise do you think it is to give a global body governance over your lives, during, any of those events that I just listed off and more that you didn't elect and that don't represent you, and you can't call and petition? Tony, you gave a number to the congressional switchboard in your opening. You're not going to be able to call, the WHO and these folks and, list your grievances and your complaints with them there. And quite frankly, they wouldn't care anyway. And so that's why it's so important that we keep our sovereignty and the ability to make decisions for how we handle these situations right here within the federal government.
Well, it's even worse than that. You just mentioned, I gave out the phone number. By the way, folks, if you'd like to sign the petition to the Senate to pass the measure that the House passed last week that would require the Senate to approve this treaty, text the word WHO to 67742. That's WHO to 67742. All right, if I wouldn't be able to give out the switchboard number to call under the provisions of the treaty, it obliges member states to quote unquote address misinformation and disinformation. So let's say the Biden administration was going to, shut down everything again because of some kind of pandemic. If I give out a number to challenge that and call Congress and say, hey, weigh in on this because this shouldn't be happening, this violates our First Amendment, they would be obligated under this treaty to declare what I'm saying as disinformation. This is the type of stuff we saw during COVID-19, which has now been proven to have been false and have silenced free speech and led us down a very destructive path.
No, you're 100% right, Tony, to bring up that perfect example of how this will be used in the future. And we had the organizations like the social media, the tech giants in Silicon Valley, and social media censoring the American people for what they were calling misinformation, disinformation, and many of us knew that we were being gaslit. But even just recently, Mark Zuckerberg just came out and talked about the pressure that he's receiving from this administration to censor the American people. We're going to continue to see more of the same unless we wake up and block this continued effort for global governance.
All right, Eli, we've got to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us.